Barbara, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, Rebecca. Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Now, my first question is, did you put body before mind in your business title and name on purpose?
That's a really good question. And it's a kind of yes and no answer, as most things tend to be. I transitioned the business from being much more about body. And so it seemed sensible because people knew me as working much more with the body. But I wanted it to be that it was much more holistic because the way the business was going was about body and mind. But also, in terms of when I looked at business names that were available, it was a lot easier to get body and mind than mind and
Mm,
body. So it was a little bit of logistics and
mhm.
kind of practical growth, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So, okay, you've been going for a while. How long has the business been going since it first started?
Since I first started in the wellbeing business, it's 23 years. The transform body and brand, it's kind of transitioned over time. So probably in that ethos in about 5 years now.
Okay, brilliant. Uh, And I said before we came on air, one of the reasons I wanted to interview you is because one, you were a pioneer in this space before it was fashionable. And two, you've made a real success of this business. And there are a lot of coaches in this space under the big sort of wellness type banner that are struggling. And I thought it'd be really useful to find out what your journey has been and what you put the success down to so that others can learn from it. Is that going to be okay with you, Barbara?
That's great. And thank you for that lovely comment.
Yeah, that's all right. That is pleasure. So, way back, all those 23 years ago, what was the first iteration of the business and where did the spark come from to set it up?
At that point in time, I'd actually been working in arts and events management.
Okay.
That's a very full on business world. It's hectic, it's not particularly healthy in that there's late
Mm.
nights, not the best food, maybe a bit too much alcohol in some aspects of that world. And I'd been working in there and then had the opportunity to go to America.
Mhm.
And I was thinking, not quite sure what I'm going to be doing there. I want to keep my options open. And I thought, what am I going to do? I can transition and work anywhere in the world. And fitness was a hobby. I was
Mhm.
not a sporty one at school. Everyone always thinks, oh, I must have come from a sports background. I wasn't. I was the
Right.
kind of the reader, the nose in book. But basically, I decided to turn a hobby into my business. And so I went off and retrained, thinking, that good old imposter syndrome. Oh, I can't really do this. I can't run. How can I be a fitness trainer? But that's where it all started. I went
Right.
off with a basic qualification and fell in love with it. Moved to
Right.
America, actually did carry on working in the arts, which is still a huge part of how I do creativity in my business. And I even moved that into working into wellbeing retreats. But basically, it started there, and I realized that I could help people who'd been in a position I've been in where you're working flat out and you need to look at how you look after yourself in that
Mm.
world. And that was
You
where that little nugget came from.
That's fab. I love the fact that it was something that you weren't particularly brilliant at school, and then you found it later on. Again, sort of people go, I'm looking for a business idea, I don't know what I'm good at. But actually, it doesn't have to be something that you're good at right now, does it?
Absolutely. And we don't know where we'll go. I mean, I trained my degrees in psychology and social policy,
Okay.
which again came back in later on when I went back into the transformational life coaching diploma. But at the time, I thought I wanted to go off and be a clinical psychologist. Went to university and went, no, not really. I really prefer singing and dancing, and I'd rather work in the arts. And that's what I did. I went into management in the arts.
Oh, fabulous. Okay. So you've got this qualification. You're like, okay, we're at the early stages now. How did you get your first clients way back then? Because I don't think we had LinkedIn 23 years ago, did we? Can't remember. Anyway, it was
No,
less online-y. So how did you find people?
we definitely didn't have LinkedIn in my world, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've only really got into LinkedIn fairly recently. So it was very much people, and it was
Mm.
what we would now call big networking. But for me, it's just always been about people and talking to people. and that's probably my biggest takeaway that I still say, it's about your connections with people and not necessarily online or whatever, but it was started off just by chatting to people and saying, I'm thinking about starting X, Y, or Z. Do you fancy coming along? In the old
Great.
days, it was good old paper advertising. I put some posters up. I would chat to people saying, oh, I'm doing this. And then each project, and I still start off on a paper basis. I still think, what do people need to know? And again, I suppose using my background in arts management, it's like, right, for me, it was about bums on seats. It became bodies and minds wanting to do something. And it's about how can we attract people? What is it going to make them want to come along? And again, that was me putting out what did I feel that was important to me, but what was important to other people? What would make people want to come together? And most of that was about community.
Ah, that's interesting. Okay, so they're coming out for the community. And were they business leaders, or what sort of people were coming back then in the early days?
In my early days, it was much more women.
Uh-huh.
And it was a mix of women. I deliberately went to women working in business because that was my background. But then I very quickly realized there was a lot of other women out there who didn't fall into my typical setup because they maybe had families and were at home, not being necessarily out at work, or they might be trying to juggle, which when I had my family, again, it was an appreciation of ages and stages. And that's been a fundamental aspect of my business, is recognizing the ages and stages. I've done that in terms of how I develop my business with my family, but also for my clients. Who was I serving? And what difference did that require? So, for example, I started off a lot with women, but then I'd have women say to me, do you know, my husband could really do with X, Y, or Z. And then it becomes word of mouth. And even now, I still get a lot of my referrals because I work with someone, and then they'll say, oh, I've told so-and-so about you. Is that okay? Would you mind? Or people give vouchers, or I'll be doing a retreat and they'll say, I've passed your name on to X, Y, or Z. And again, it's all that connection.
Yeah, there's nothing to beat it. You just can't beat that. Like you say, having conversations in the real world, making those connections, and when you do a great job, people just simply refer you, don't they? It's not rocket science.
It's not, and I say that about my entire work and business. It's not rocket science, but what I try and do is make it interesting to people when it might be something that's not of interest or at the bottom of their to-do list. Because most of us, the well-being does, and I don't mean to generalize hugely, but with women, it tends to be, especially if you've got children, that we just kind of slip in down there. Where actually, as I try and encourage that, think about put your own face mask on first, as we do on an airplane, before we help the others. And it's just the same. If we're not firing on our cylinders, it's really hard for both in our professional and our personal lives to be what we need to be and to be as good as we want to be.
We can't. As I was swimming today, I delivered a leadership session this morning, and then I went for a swim, and I thought Barbara will be proud of me.
I am.
I'm going to tell her.
I love it.
Okay, so now the clients that you have are corporate as well as individuals, aren't they?
Yes, they are. And again, that grew. Initially, I always was like, I'm just working with individuals, whether it was in a group or one-to-one. Initially, there was a bit more group, then it went to more one-to-one. And then what would happen is I would get asked, oh, can you do something for my team? And so that's really how that side of the business grew. So again, it was all about, it was quite organic in terms of my growth. I didn't think, right, I'm going to start going out to businesses. Once it started, I then thought, actually, I should make it known that I do this.
Yeah.
So that's now something that I say I do. But initially, it just started off because people would say, oh, we're looking for X, Y, and Z. Is that something you could do? Or I'd be having a conversation with a client and saying, here's an idea, and they say, that's really good. And I said, well, you could incorporate this at work. So, for example, I've done lots of silly little videos on LinkedIn and Instagram, and it's me lying on a foam roller going, there you go, everyone in your office should have one. And yeah, I look a bit ridiculous, but again, it's really important that people think, actually, I can do that, and I don't need to be off doing an hour to make myself fit and healthy, or I don't need to be running up and down stairs and get myself sweaty. But actually, one of our biggest problems is posture.
Yeah.
So lying on a foam roller for a few minutes, great. So I have a lot of people that do that all around the country.
I now clean my teeth standing on one leg thanks to one of your silly videos.
I love it. What can I say?
It's like, oh, okay. So if I just stand on one leg and clean it, can you tell everybody why that's quite an interesting thing to do?
It's like sort of many parts of our things. If we just do things automatically, it becomes habit and we don't really have to think about it. Now, as we age, our balance decreases. So it's a way of making sure that that never happens. You know, I have a little saying with some of my older clients. I do that song like every day I'm shuffling. I say, when you start to shuffle, life is going to get worse. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's why standing on one leg while you're brushing your teeth is really good, because you keep your balance. It helps your core, but you have more chance. Your life will be longer statistically, and this is proven evidence, isn't just me saying it, that if you do that and you keep your balance up, you will live generally longer.
That's the bit that got me. I was like,
Mhm.
I'm going to live longer if I just stand on one leg while I'm clean. I'm just going to do that. So,
Yeah, we've got less chance of falling. And again, that's one of the things I try and drive home about is that, you know, I talk about mindset, nutrition, and fitness, and they don't all have to be huge things, but it's that balance of pulling them together. So, you know, things like sleep, and people say, well, where does that come in? And it's kind of, well, that's partly into our mindset. And in terms of how our mind works, we need that time to sleep to recover. So, you know, it's all these bits that pull together.
it's wonderful. Typically, how long do you work with an individual for?
Mm. I used to think it would start off and be, you know, generally it'd be like a 4 to 10 week, depending on what we're looking at. Everything is bespoke. So, you know, when I started off, like, right, you do 4 weeks, you do 10 weeks. That's, you know, 12 weeks is generally what we say creates habit. Weeks always sounds quite nice for people because that's a good block time. A month, because people are like, well, they can try it. They don't like it. They don't feel they're overcommitted. Whereas generally one session in something, yeah, you can have a great power hour. But if you really want to make consistent change, longer. So I started off going in that route, and then very quickly suddenly went, oh, you're coming back for more. Oh, you're coming back
Ah,
for more. So I've got clients now that I've worked with for over 10 years. It's over 10 years now I've been back in Scotland, and I have
wow.
still work with, because something will be achieved. And again, it might be something in a personal life, or it might be they want to train to do X, Y, or Z. So again, it depends on where they're in, whether they're in a fitness or a mindset issue or a business issue, because I do coaching on all different aspects. And so it can end up being that, you know, I've got clients I'll work with for a month on a project. They'll go away and do it, and then they'll come back and say, right, we're on to the next stage of the project. Can
Okay.
we pick up? Or I have other clients, as I say, I've worked with for 10 years, and we meet once a week and we
Wow.
crack on.
That is testament to your abilities, Barbara. That really is. That, you know, people keep coming back for more and people regularly see you for a long period of time. You must be adding something really significant to their lives. How does that feel when you think about that?
It's actually something I've thought a lot about lately,
Mm,
because I care passionately about the people I work with. And somebody
mm,
said the other day about, oh, that word passion, it's like so, you know, out of date, don't use it. And I thought, I can't help using it because I do care. You know, one of
mm.
my clients recently had an operation, and I popped up unexpectedly just to go in and say, hi, how are you? How are you feeling? And I actually got a huge hug and thank you so
Oh,
much for coming, because I've been feeling a bit miserable. And I genuinely believe that if we care about what we do and who we're doing it with and why we're doing it, that makes a difference. And,
mm,
you know, I do have clients that I kind of always call it a bit of like my TBM family. You know, I host events that are just for the clients I work with. I have other events which are open and they're public, but I've got things that are saying these are just for those people that I work with
mm.
regularly, and it's kind of a team. And so
Yeah,
people get
nice.
people, and it is about working together and creating relationships. And in the
Mm.
same way that I have turned around and said to people, you don't need me, it's me. But there are some people again who say, well, actually, this is my accountability, or this
Right.
is my sounding board. You know, what I say is that I offer safe and effective spaces and non-judgmental. And so that's key, it's the relationship we build. I'm interested in the people.
Yeah.
I don't say, oh, we're going to do a 20-week block or a 6-month program, because you might not need that.
Yeah.
It's about everything is bespoke. Yes, you can come and work with me on a 6-week online program if you choose to, but you can also have the very bespoke. And even when I'm doing an online program, I still try and give value. So I care about you, not just the fact that there's one of 8 of you or 10 of you. And again, I try and keep limited numbers, because I feel that creates better connection for me, which means I hope it's better for the people I work with.
Yeah, definitely. How do you keep your energy levels up? Because that's very giving. How do you refill and recharge your batteries?
That's really interesting too, because I change. And again, I think that all comes into ages and stages and understanding where we are and being in tune with ourselves. So running has always been, since I took up in the fitness world, running, which started as a little bit of a hobby at the time, and then I realized that helps me just switch off. There are days now when I go, oh, I just don't want to run, because I've run a lot now over the years.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I started in the last year was growing flowers from seed, which I did when I lived in the States. And then I had a family, and now my family are going off. And my daughter's like, is this your midlife moment, Mum, when you're growing flowers instead of babies? And I was like, no, I just quite like the concept, and it works really well with that growth and the nurturing. And so I do different things. I love the arts. That's my switch off. I go to see things. I find that going to gigs is probably my favourite thing, and that's how I switch off.
Okay, right. So I could go off on a massive tangent here, because I can see my garden from my office, and I have a stand-up desk. So I record the podcast most of the time standing up. So yeah, I have become not obsessed with the garden, but it's now a passion of mine. So I completely relate to that. And I don't think there's anything wrong in saying, look, I've raised the kids, I'm raising the garden. And also I have 2 dogs, and my oldest 2 have left home, and my son said, "You're basically replacing us with dogs, aren't you?" I went, "Yes, I am. Yes."
Well, I'll say that we have the dog too. The only problem is we timed it badly. We need to plan to have a dog that would be kind of the end of life, if I can say that in the nicest possible way, when our children are leaving home. And our dog has got no desire to go anywhere.
Well,
lots of traveling and going to a lot more adventures, probably a wee bit more limited than we thought they'd be by then.
Well, we did the same. So our oldest dog is 8.5, and our youngest daughter is 14.5. So we thought, oh yeah, about 4 years, he's probably going to shuffle off this mortal coil. We'll be free. But when my son and daughter left home at the same time, I had a year or so of going, there's a gap, I need to fill that gap. And so last year we got a puppy. So that has just scuppered everything, really.
Well, I'm impressed, because I'm not going to that route.
No, well done you. Now, have you seen, again, we'll come back to business in a minute, but have you seen the Grace and Perry art show at the National Gallery in Scotland in Edinburgh yet?
Friday.
It's fabulous.
Friday is I'm going to the big, I don't know if you've seen the show that's coming to Botanics, the floral dress show.
No, I have not.
Oh, it opens on Friday. So I have, talking about linking this all with Wellbeing and children, my youngest and last is leaving home on Saturday morning.
Right.
So we're going off to the Botanics, to this exhibition that is there, and then we're going to Grace and Perry. It's a lovely last full day in Edinburgh before she heads off into the...
That's going to be lovely. Yeah.
Really recommend. Did you love the Grace and Perry?
Oh, amazing. Just amazing, because he combines, and as a coach, actually, it's really interesting the way he combines words with his imagery. And they have equal power and almost equal weight in his work, I think. And it's beautiful. It's life affirming. His observational skills are off the scale, and his commentary on being English and being the class society and all kinds of, and it's quite, it pokes quite gently at things, which is nice. Yes, you'll love it, and I'll check the botanics out. Right, let's bring it back on track. So if I was to go on one of your retreats, what would I expect to experience, Barbara?
So I would say that depends on which one and where.
Oh, you do several. How exciting.
Yeah. So basically there's UK-based ones, and then there's the overseas ones. So I started off doing the overseas, and that again grew organically, just because I had a couple of clients who said, it'd be great to do this every day, when we're talking about things, doing things. And it's like, can I just come and live with you for a week? And we used to make jokes about it. And then I thought, actually, there's a few people that have said this. Wouldn't it be quite nice to put something together that people could come and live with me for a week, and we could experience that? So that's how it started. And then doing that, got a few people, so again, keep it nice and small. We all go off. And it starts off literally an early rise, and it was in the Canary Islands. That was the first one I ever did. Nice. So off we go, we trot down to the beach, we have a sunrise, we do a little bit of morning meditation as the sun's rising, we've got the waves lapping at our feet, we then do some movement, we get the bodies waking up, and we just have this little flow. Then we go and have some breakfast, because by now we're starting to get a little bit hungry. And then basically it's a series of workshops. So we'll either do some movement, we'll do some mindset workshops. So it's basically covering everything in mindset, nutrition and fitness. Yeah. So we might have a workshop on, say it was nutrition, it might be like, okay, current trends, right now there's this whole thing about should we be eating carbs, should we not? So it's very educational, but done in a practical way that takes into consideration who is there. And what implications that mean? If you're really busy and you don't enjoy cooking, how can we make that better for you? Whereas if you're a fantastic cook and you're like wanting to live, but maybe having too much food, it's like, how can we bring that into your life that you've got a great balance? So, and then there might be other things. I do all kinds of workshops as we go. I was telling one of my clients yesterday, as he told me about a photograph he'd taken because of something I'd inspired him with, apparently. And I said, oh, that's quite interesting, because when we go away, on one of the retreats I've done, I sent people off with their camera. I said, I want you to go away and just literally 5 minutes, go away, and I want you to come back with a photograph of something that has intrigued or inspired you or made you think of something, and look at something from a different angle to how you normally would. And then you come back in and we discuss. So there's really all kinds of different things. We use art, creative conversations, energy. It's a real mix depending on what it is. So for example, the one I'm running in January, it's very much about if you want to be more in 24, it's about like how are you going to achieve that? Because the January one's always great, because people are thinking, right, new year, what am I going to do? And it's a lovely boost. Then of course COVID came along and we couldn't suddenly go to the islands. We weren't really doing, so I did a few online things, but then I got asked to go and do retreats in some hotels. And so I changed the nature. So it might be there's a specific theme. So we might be doing an energizing one. I'm about to go down to Yorkshire in October, and we're doing a day event there in the autumn that will then lead to a spring event. So the day one is about autumn air. It's an autumn air retreat. And that's going to be all about our senses and using our senses to, again, feel our best. So generally they've got themes, but basically the crux of them all is feeling better.
Just where do I sign, Barbara? Where do I sign? Seriously, how do people find out about these retreats?
On my website, which is www.transformbodyandmind.co.uk.
Brilliant.
And there's a retreat section there. But generally, I say to people, talk to me, because there are sometimes retreats that I do that don't go out on public, because I'll pull people together. I also do ones for groups. So we've had an organisation who said we want to do something for this team, and we put things together. So there's a lot of bespoke things, and then there are things that just go on the website or my social media.
Sounds fabulous. It sounds absolutely fantastic. Okay. So what's 23 years, very successful. And what occurs to me is that you've always developed something that a client has asked you for. You've been very client or customer led. And as I go through the world and I talk to many, many businesses, this theme keeps popping up actually. Is that your business has grown because you've responded to what your clients are asking you for. And I think many businesses do it the wrong way round. And they just go, oh, we're going to do this because this is what we think people want. But actually, and this is for the coaches and consultants out there, actually, if you listen to your clients, they tell you what they want, and then all you have to do is give it to them.
Absolutely. And don't get me wrong, you're saying, it's all very successful. Yeah, I mean, it depends on what your term of success is, but I feel happy with my business, and that's how I justify it. But it's been a long, hard 23 years. I've worked around my family, I've had kids in tow while I've been, dropping things off. I decided to go and work with 5 to 8-year-olds because it fitted in around my kids. And then, so like everyone, when you run your own business, people say, oh, it's all right for you. You keep fit at your work. Or, oh, you've got this, you've got that. It's hard work running a business. You are jack of all trades. I am at a stage where I enjoy working with other people in collaborations, or I have people that I pull in to do certain projects because we've met and we gel. And that for me is a lovely way of working. But in terms of definitely listening, I would also say I've learned from things where people have approached me and asked me to do something because they had a quiet time in their venue and thought, oh, bringing you in will make this busy. And they've asked me to come in and do something. And then there's not been the uptake because nobody wants to go to that place in November because it's cold and wintry and, they might not get there because of snow. So it's one of the things I then learned was that actually not everything's going to work, but it's right to try things. But that what I put out and do myself are the things I've listened to and go, and I'll try it. I won't just go, right, huge, massive, let's try and get 500 people there. I'll have a pilot project and go, okay, I like the way that went, and we'll do that. And I think that's what I'm fortunate at, having worked in large scale events before, means that I have the experience and I wasn't scared, because that can often hold us back. Whereas, you know what's the worst can happen? And I've been there. I was very fortunate in that many years ago I got to have the Red Arrows at an event, and it meant that you have the guys in the sky.
Wow.
At that time they were all guys. The guys were in the sky, and then you had Red 10 on the ground.
Wow.
And if anything happened to Red 10, I was next in command. Now, that's quite a scary position to be in. When you're standing there going, okay, please don't have any birds flying to any engines. Or, and there was another project where I had off a clock tower, and these, what are the words for them? When you're at a port and you've got the big, huge, the things, the cranes basically that take the containers off. Well, I had an aerial ballet done on those. And I had to persuade, now these things cost a fortune, and I had to persuade the Port Authority at the time to allow us to have these dancers come off there. So you can imagine the insurance logistics. But again, that's where you think, what can you do that you can pull in on your experience, that you can think, okay, well, if you can do that, you can do that. And
pretty much.
what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, pretty much. I think running a retreat in the UK or the Canary Islands sounds pretty straightforward compared to having ballet dancers on cranes in ports.
But actually, maybe it was an age thing. I probably worry more, because then you start worrying about, right, well, what if the flights are not on time? What if somebody has an accident? And you've got all these elements. People think, oh, it's all very lovely. And my kids go, oh, mum's off, she's off to the Canaries, it's all right, it's lovely. And I go, guys, I'm up at 10 o'clock in the morning to prep, and I make sure that everybody and all the teams, everything goes the way it should, so that in the evening it's then back in. And you go back and you sit and go, right, what was great today, what wasn't great, what can we do tomorrow that may be different? So you're constantly analysing. But I will confess that is probably one of my favourite
Yeah, I mean, I run the 7-day NLP courses, and whilst, it's 7 days and I get to go home at night, so I'm not even sharing a space with the people on the course, but it's you're looking for something. You've always got to be planning the next thing. You've got to get there early, you leave last. And you want to make sure people have the best experience possible. So it's very giving. And when I've done the NLP courses, I usually take a day off, and I spend the day at one spa in Edinburgh and just go and really, really chill. And I didn't do that last time. I ended up really just exhausted because of it. So yes, next time, definitely doing that. So where's the business heading? What are you going to do with it?
Well, this is interesting as well, because my little one is about to leave home. She is no longer little. So from my point of view, this is really an exciting time. I mean, obviously there's the emotional, personal side, but we're at the stage where everybody is ready. She's ready to go. We're all sad, but
Yeah.
it's a kind of change for me. And I think it's quite exciting because I want to grow and do different things. I've got a couple of new project lines, if you like, Colin. So I'll give you a sneak peek. So there's a new strand, which is called Cracking Living. And literally that's about, again, what it says on the tin, cracking living. I've seen the last 3 years, in August 2020, I was meant to have a big woohoo, this is us, 20 years, blah, blah, blah. And what were we doing in August 2020? I was online with everybody.
Yeah.
It was a tough time. And I didn't feel it was right afterwards to go, yay. And life is tough. So I haven't done that. You know what? I made that because I'm also very conscious we're living in very difficult times. I don't believe in resting on my laurels. I think I have to work hard all the time. I like coming up with new ideas. And I feel that it's about cracking living, because the last 3 years have been super hard for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I've noticed a massive change in the wellbeing industry. It was interesting what you said about, it's a trend. Well, there are things that we're dealing with now in wellbeing that we would never have been dealing with 5 years ago. The young people I work with, there's way more anxiety. The older people I work with, it's things like people have been sitting on their backsides way longer. So you're talking about brushing your teeth on one leg because mobility changes. So there's all kinds of things. Addictions are higher than I've experienced for a long time. So there's lots of things that have made me go, right, where's next? What do I want to be doing from my personal and the business side? So Cracking Living is going to be a new strand, and that is just about how to crack living. I kind of like the play on the little sort of Irish crack, about having fun with life. How can we make it the best we can? So yeah, that's the kind of next one.
Very excited about that. Are you going to write a book?
Well, I need to do that. In lockdown, I did a project book on revitalizing your eating, and that kind of like revitalize. And it was, again, just something small, and it was a little, a pilot. And so there is one in the pipeline. It's a bigger project.
Good.
I just need to spend some time actually doing it.
Yeah, good.
I'm on a plane on Monday, and I'll be on a plane for 5 hours. I reckon I can get quite a lot done then.
Yeah, I think you have so much to share, Barbara, that's useful to so many people at different stages in their life. That a book is a great way to convey that to more people out there. And I think I for one would definitely buy it without a shadow of a doubt. Because it's, I dip in and out of wellness and nutrition and mindset and all kinds of things. But to have something, the way you cover it holistically, it would be fantastic, because you're covering it from all angles. And I think so many of the stuff that's out there is just quite narrow. People will deal just with fitness or just with nutrition, which is fine, because you kind of have to have your niche. But I think the way that you started off fairly narrow and have broadened it out, I think that's a huge amount of information to share with people, and a book is the obvious way to do it. So I shall look for. Have you got a title? Have you got a working title, Barbara?
I'm not sure I want to share.
Okay.
Red wine and chocolate.
I love it. I'm definitely buying several copies.
I would say Sworn Secret, but it's out there now, and I probably have to do this now. But yeah, and there's a reason behind all that, which is all explained, as I go. But thanks for that, because it is interesting. Because when you've been doing something for a long time, and I think, everybody knows that, and that's boring, and people ask me like, everybody's saying and everybody's talking about it, because I get so much in that you do start to think, yeah, everybody knows that. But I think it's great, and the experience. And I do get frustrated sometimes, because I'll look at something online and, at the moment there's a very trend and a specific thing for women and their bottoms.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm going,
Why?
yeah. And I just look and go, posturally, the problems that's going to create down the line.
Yeah.
Because, I've been very lucky. I've done CPD, continual professional development, every year for 23 years, and it's all been all different kinds of things. So one of the years I decided, because I'd broken my foot, it led me into doing a sports massage.
Okay.
Because I got told massage would be quite good, and then I started, this is really interesting. And so, again, learning more about what makes our bodies tick. And so being able to pull all those different things, and you can sort of bring things together. And I think that's really important. And I just look and go, these young women, I'm just telling you now,
Don't
think about your low backs.
Absolutely. Well, I wore high heels to work for 20 years. I now see a chiropractor at least once a month. There you go. That's where it ends up.
But what I will say is, wearing high heels after you have run. So if you do any distance running, put some high heels on when you come back. It's really good for you, because again, it changes the shape. Because if you've been doing a long distance, you're constantly keeping in that same pattern. So they used to laugh at me, because I'd come home all hot and sweaty from doing a marathon, and then I'd go and put my heels on and walk around the house.
The last thing I would do. But yeah, good advice. That's brilliant.
It's changing. It doesn't have to be immediate, but again, it's about changing their shape. So there's all these little silly things that to other people might sound a bit bizarre, but actually they're kind of tried and tested, and it works.
Brilliant. Now, if your business was a person or a character or had a personality, how would you describe it, Barbara? This is my last question.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, funnily, I was thinking about somebody who put something on LinkedIn the other day about as if your business was a film. And I thought, it's not so much the business, but it's more because it's me, which I guess, my business has its own identity, but because I drive the business, it's Thelma and Louise.
Love it.
Which a lot of people probably go, what? That's quite an old film.
It's a great film.
It's a great film. And I keep thinking I must go back and revisit it. And I thought there is a weird ending, which I'll not say to spoil people, but it's a bit like, kind of live the life that you just get off in the sports soft top.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a brilliant place to end. The Thelma and Louise of Wellbeing. Fabulous.
And actually, just seeing it on screen, I reckon we could be quite good Thelma and Louises. What do you think?
Well, our coaching program that we train business coaches in is called the Kick-Ass Culture Coaching and Consulting Program, because of things like Thelma and Louise and other really strong, powerful women. It's like they are really kick-ass. And I keep getting banned from LinkedIn ads for typing kick-ass, because it's a banned word. We've worked our way around it. And we're on a call yesterday, and the people in the Middle East are going, we're going to have to not use kick-ass because culturally it's not acceptable. I'm like, that's fine. Just say top culture coach. It's fine.
Yeah, that takes me back to working in America, and it was when you started off training in classes, and it was all about your butt, and I was like, I don't have a butt. I've got a bottom, thank you.
terribly British, terribly British.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much for your time, Barbara. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to reading your book when it's out.
Thank you, Rebecca. It's been so lovely chatting.